First of all, you asked me, is programmatic real? And I think it's very real. That doesn't mean it's not small relative to the size of TV. TV today is, however you calculate it, $60, $70 billion. Programmatic is probably a very, very small fraction of that. However, it's growing extremely quickly, and it's growing extremely quickly for a number of reasons. One is there's a lot of waste in television, and programmatic reflects one way to remove waste from television. The second is automation lets you do some things that you couldn't do without automation. You can buy smaller pieces of things. You can see how well they work. You can titrate the result and change it. And so if you have small pieces of things that you do very, very quickly, it's much more efficient than to do one large thing, which is what normally happens with television. And so programmatic is the foundation to allow those types of things to happen. When you layer in all of the new data that can now be applied to television, then you get a very potent mix, something that's very valuable to all the parties, to the sellers, who we generally reflect their intentions because you can make the inventory more valuable, especially inventory where people didn't actually understand the value of it. You know, if it's low rated, if it's late night, if it's on a small channel or things like that, it's not understood by a national panel. So programmatic can bring out the value in that. The second thing is by automating it, you change the sense of the amount of work needed to accomplish something. So today, you know, television buying is structured around, you know, a few very large transactions. And so if you did small transactions that way, it wouldn't be efficient. You can think of it like the stock market, where, you know, you used to buy 1,000 shares, somebody would wave a flag and say, you know, I want to buy 1,000 shares, and transaction would happen. But now it's 5 and 6 and 3 and 2 and all sorts of things happening very, very quickly. Automation makes that happen. And what that does is gives you more transparency ultimately, more control, more ability to analyze what's happening at any one moment, which is very much what marketing needs. I think the last thing that's very important in programmatic is that it brings to linear television the same set of tools that people like from the internet world. In fact, linear television, I'll go so far as to say, can actually outstrip what the internet can do, because in some cases, in case of addressable television, linear television provides a lot more information than the internet does about people who are watching TV. So programmatic on linear television is a hot topic. It's still small, but it will become much, much larger. As for what we're doing, so we started about a year and a half ago, we started a subsidiary called Audience Express. And Audience Express is a subsidiary of Visible World, uses the Visible World technology, but it's separately organized. And they sell programmatic television. And we found that to be a very fast-growing business. It's gotten more value for our suppliers, meaning our suppliers are getting more money for their inventory than if they were just selling it to whoever the buyer of last resort is. The buyers get more control, they get more visibility, more transparency. They get results the next morning about what ran and how much and what the outcome was, and so they're able to measure the effectiveness of it. And so that has the seeds of very good, powerful business. Insertion on television is real time, meaning other than syndication, most commercials are cued in very, very real time. The question is, when are the decisions made about what to do with it? And so for a long time, the decisions in television were made way, way in advance of when the ad ran. But their ads themselves are put together in real time. What we've been able to do recently is cut down the amount of time to when a decision is made, so that you can decide what ad runs right before that ad goes onto air. And we now have the controls and the ability to do that. And that's done primarily for the purpose of generating greater yield.
What's that time lapse or time before? Like
it could be seconds. Yeah. And now the data still takes a little bit of time, but instead of taking weeks to get data, we can get the data in hours. The other thing that we're doing, aside from Audience Express, our programmatic television subsidiary, is we're taking that same technology, which we call high yield, and selling tools so that networks, broadcasters, programmers, MVPDs can have their own programmatic capabilities. We think of ourselves as providing value to the sell side. That doesn't mean we don't work directly with buyers, because in order to do that, you have to work directly with buyers. But our focus is to make the inventory more valuable. And we think there's a way of doing that all the parties in the transaction are happy.